Sair da escola já com uma formação profissional no currículo? Parece bom demais pra ser verdade, né? Pois é. No ensino técnico do Senac, isso é possível. É ensino médio junto com formação técnica, que acontece durante os 3 anos. Lá, eles usam metodologia para projetos, desenvolvendo competências como resolução de problemas, pensamento crítico e colaboração, além de valores éticos e sustentáveis. Quer saber? Senac. Acesse sp.senac.br/ensino médio e saiba mais.
Hi there, I am Sarah Jane Case, and I'm the host of your new favorite show, Enneagram and Coffee. This podcast is dedicated to discussing the beautiful and hard parts of being human. We discuss the Enneagram, a personality map that is taking over the world, for increased self-compassion, personal growth, and healthier relationships. Listen to Enneagram and Coffee on the iHeart app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to BookTok for BookTok, a literary podcast where we deep dive into the writings of your favorite novels. This summer, we are hosting our Romantasy Edition of Book Club while we prepare for a 15-part literary analysis of Sarah J. Maas's House of Sky and Breath. This is Jack.
And I'm Amy, and each week we'll discuss one book from our Summer Book Club roster. By using our literary background, we'll provide our first blush analysis of each book, as well as discuss listener thoughts.
This week, we'll be discussing Bride by Ali Hazelwood. The views expressed by the hosts are entirely their own and in no way represent the thoughts or intentions of the original author.
This podcast is a discussion, shared to spark thought and conversation on the characters and themes of this novel.
The interpretations presented in this podcast are just a few of the many possibilities. Listeners are encouraged to read along and share their own analysis of the text. Explicit language, as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death will recur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
Thank you to all our Patreon supporters, with a special shout out to our March 2024 Trophy Wives. Thank you, Shelby, Liv, Laura, Amber, Catherine, Veronica, Anne, Jackie, Violet, Nicole, Amelade, Jessica, Helen, Danica, Carissa, Colleen, Alexa, Sam, and Allison. To learn more about becoming a trophy wife, visit patreon.com/BookTok for BookTok. Thanks, trophy wives.
So one thing that I want to bring up that's not in the comments and is that I love that she only knew how to defend herself enough. I love that she went to self-defense classes because she's, enough people have tried to kill her off. That was hilarious. Where it's like after the fifth time, you kind of have to learn how to protect yourself. So she could put up a fight, but it was never like, okay, you're a warrior. I'll trust you. You can walk around safely. It was like, okay, you were able to hold your own because you fought against a teenager who's not prepared.
Yeah. She knew enough to be a danger to herself and to others, but not to cause true harm.
Yeah.
So I agree. One of our listeners did say, loved the kindness of the male main character. Never mind. But, never mind. I extrapolated the comment to be about misery, but it was really about Lo. Never mind.
Hilarious.
Scratch that. But I agree. I agree that she's powerful. She's an apex predator who doesn't really know how to do her thing and be that apex predator.
I know she can't even do the hypno thing very well. She's like, this is what you've got 15 minutes of this with me, and then that's it.
Which I appreciate because no one trained her.
Yeah.
It's totally believable.
And we didn't get this moment, and I was kind of anticipating it, not in a way that I was upset that it didn't happen or upset that if it would have happened, but just more in the way that modern fiction has trained me of her being some kind of special vampire who her dad has experimented on or something, and she's actually a natural at all these things. Nope, she just never studied enough. She never was trained, so
yeah,
that's it.
I mean, when you lead a really mediocre life, but
It's true.
when you live as collateral, like, what else can you expect?
Yeah.
I appreciated that at the end of the day, what made Misery special was her capacity for empathy
Yeah.
and her capacity to find value in individuals unlike herself.
Mm-hmm.
And that was her superpower. And that is what makes her special when
Yeah.
you look at all the other people around her. I think it was a great choice from a writing perspective because it would have been a total cop out if she was special somehow and somehow that's
Yeah.
what led to her finding Serena.
I love that what made her special was her compassion and understanding
Mhm.
that she always had the ability for compassion. Like,
Yeah.
she went into living with Lo like, I'm a hard bitch who only cares about my best friend, and that's it. And I have no
Mhm.
emotions. And then it's
Mhm.
like, okay, maybe I do have emotions. And it's not because vampires aren't capable of it. It's just how she was raised, and she mentioned
Yeah.
so many times, "Well, this isn't what vampires do. This isn't what they
Yeah.
do." And even though she wasn't raised completely there, she still spent her first 7 years with the vampires and the
Yeah.
rest of the time being ignored, so, yes, she's gonna have these issues. So, her greatest superpower became emotional intelligence.
Yeah, which I love. I
It's
love.
it's great. It's great. She's
But I think I think honestly in real life, emotional intelligence is a superpower and a lot of people lack it.
yeah,
Speaking from personal experience, it's what makes me really good at my job because I read people really
yeah, yeah,
well in a way that others can't.
yep.
So, it is a superpower.
It
Don't
was
underestimate it.
I was watching a video on TikTok and it was like different clips of showing Travis Kelce's emotional intelligence.
Mm.
It
And
was hot. I was like, "Ooh, baby, please talk about how this hurt your feelings and how you grew from it. I like it when you heal."
So, even though we liked how maybe Missouri didn't have a superpower, some of our listeners pointed out that they didn't necessarily like Misery, that they didn't feel like she grew,
Mm, mhm.
that she had the same issues at the start as she did at the end. And and I can see a case for that, right? She
Yeah.
didn't go from being untrained to super trained.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts, Jack?
I think the parts that changed from her are subtle, and it makes it harder, and because the things that we were just talking about of her, the things that she gained was, like, emotional intelligence and realizing that she
Mhm.
doesn't hate everyone, and those were the big things that made her grow. It's not like a loud ta-da,
Mhm.
here's
Yeah.
the character arc. And it is subtle, and I think it can be overshadowed by such a large personality. So,
Yeah.
because Misery is so funny, is so loud, you know, it could overpower these moments of growth. I don't
Yeah.
I would say that she's not the same person at the beginning and at the end, but her
Yeah.
personality never changes. And that's not a bad
Right.
thing. It just makes it hard when things do change. Again, personality's notched up to 10. So when this other thing happens, it's hard to it's hard for some people to say, "Oh, yes, that's either A, I don't see that change, or B, that's not a big enough change." Because
Right.
personality's at 10.
Yeah, I mean, to continue that metaphor, if the change dial is at a 1
Yeah.
and the personality is at a 10,
Yeah.
the change is hard to notice.
Yes.
Except, and when it's the opposite, the change is really
Yeah.
obvious, but the personality is extremely lacking.
How dare you say that
So,
about Farrah? Were you? Or was that just my brain?
uh, I wasn't, but now I am.
Who were you
It's
thinking?
fine.
Who were you thinking when you said that?
I was I wasn't thinking of
Oh,
anyone.
me
I was
neither.
just
Me neither.
I was
No,
talking in the
no, me
hypotheticals.
neither. I'm sure this is I need to go back to listen to season 1 of that because I'm sure season 1 of me would be like, "She had so much personality. Leave her alone." But it's been so much fun so far.
Yeah, we're so far gone from season 1. I can't remember anything that was said.
We were different people then.
We we really were.
I know. We get to sit in chairs now.
It's great.
Okay, so let's go into love and relationship.
Okay.
Low, also known as
Uh-huh.
Lowe's Hardware Store. Lowe's Hardware should have sponsored this episode. That's what they should have done.
Yeah.
I mean, before we read comments, thoughts on Low, Amy?
So I think this goes back to what we were saying earlier. Does he have a lot of personality? Without the little snippets at the beginning of every chapter,
Mhm.
it would be hard to tell.
Yeah.
Um, and the little snippets at the start of the chapter kind of make you root for him
Mhm.
and for him in Misery. I don't know that he's the material of worthy to be my fictional boyfriend,
Yeah. Fair.
but I loved him for Misery.
I love him for her. I adore him. Just because I don't want to pin his photo on my wall. I don't have any. The only man who's on my wall is this.
The raccoon.
The raccoon.
Captain Raccoon.
Captain Raccoon. It's a pirate raccoon. But he was perfect for Misery in so many ways. There were times where I actually did question if this is the right personality for her.
Well, and let's think about it from a writing perspective. You can't have two characters dialed to 10.
No.
Nobody would read that shit.
No.
So the fact that he is so dialed down
Mhm.
and reserved is really important in making Misery as a female protagonist work.
Yeah. And I think that, like, I'm, going back to what I was just saying, and it kind of dawned on me, was like, there were moments where I wasn't sure if he was the right one for her. I think that's a smart strategical move as a writer because it
Mhm.
becomes so obvious that they're mates. Like, it's obvious from the
Mm.
get-go that they're mates, but
Mhm.
at least there's, like, attempts of turning it down of, like, oh, maybe they're not mates. Maybe this isn't the right one for her. Even
Mhm.
though we all know
Mhm.
they're mates, except for Misery. I do love Misery, but that's, like, dumb level. I just want one day, I want a female character who can figure it out quickly.
Well, the reason why I allowed it
Mhm.
is because genetically it's never she doesn't know it to have ever been possible.
Yeah.
And mates is a foreign concept to her.
Mhm.
No one's ever told her that it's possible for a werewolf and a vampire to be mates.
Mhm.
So I can believe it. Do I think that doesn't make her any less dumb? But I can accept the dumb.
I can accept that Allie did a good job of setting up why this world would be like, it's impossible. It's like
Right.
when I realized that beluga whales and narwhals could have babies. I didn't know that was possible. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
What?
I'm still shocked. And it's adorable.
I need to Google this.
Apparently there's a narwhal that's hanging out with a bunch of belugas and they like accepted him and they're just a bunch of like male belugas that are just cruising around, and now that they're like ready to mate, they're just like searching for some lady belugas. And so and there's evidence that narwhals and belugas have had babies before because they found skeletal remains that were just super trippy. And then they did DNA testing. So now I think they called him a narluga or something.
Mm.
I know.
This is amazing.
If narwhals and belugas can make it work.
Then vampires and werewolves can too.
Science. I was actually complaining about it to our friend Nicole, where I was like, why do like narwhals and belugas get other options? Like, why can't we have another option? Like, why can't we have aliens? That's what I want. Or
I'm
vampire or werewolf.
sorry.
I'll accept it.
Except they would still be in LA and they would still suck.
No, they'd be from outer space, Amy. And then that would be men of LA. Dear Lord. Okay, so here's an interesting when polling people of like what people liked and stuff. Someone said that they liked the enemies to lovers. I don't think this was an enemies to lovers book. This was one person has a misunderstanding of they don't like me and they're actually have always wanted me from the get-go. I don't know what trope that's called, but I do think that and I've seen that done several times. I do think that gets categorized as enemies to lovers too often.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like you can't look at this book in a vacuum. You have to look at it in the context of all of Allie Hazelwood's other books. I mean, every book that I've read by her has been enemies to lovers,
But
but
is it
or
enemies?
it's it's not. It is perceived. It
Yeah.
is perceived enemies to lovers. And sometimes that can be enough if in the protagonist's mind they are enemies
Yeah.
because they approach every encounter as enemies.
I want a different name for the trope. Perceived enemies to lovers. Because if you tell me enemies to lovers, I want someone to stab someone first.
Yeah, that's fair.
I
That's fair.
want, like, them to be like, "I wanna spit on your grave," you know? Like, that's the
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
love I
Yeah.
want in my
Yeah.
books.
Yeah. I feel like it's more like angry puppy to lovers. Like it's angry at the wall. Like it doesn't know what it's actually angry at.
Angry puppy to lovers is the most accurate description of this book. It is of this book, of the genre of, like,
Yeah.
angry puppy to lovers. That's so funny. So another person says, though, when it comes to the negative side of things, is that it was so slow, it felt like most of the book was built up romantically.
Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, yeah, it was a slow burn. I don't know how to fight that. I guess if you come into this thinking it's going to be a smutty book,
You're gonna be disappointed.
yeah, you expect smut a lot sooner,
Yeah.
and that was not the case with
No.
this.
This is, a tease. This is a teasy book.
Yeah, I mean, it's a misunderstood angry puppy who can't understand anybody else to eventually lovers with a little bit of sex.
Yeah, that's accurate. That's accurate. Yeah, I love a slow burn. This is, like, where we were talking about it when we did our Crescent City read, and when Bryce and Hunt finally hooked up, I was kinda sad where I'm like, "Oh, I liked it when their hands brushed," and it was, like,
Mhm.
tension.
Mhm.
So, I am
Yeah.
a sucker for tension. It's such a I want I want, like, the majority to be tension and build up, but then I want a novella of just smut with them. Like, that's how I
Yeah.
want to live
Yeah.
my
Yeah. Yeah.
life,
Yeah. Yeah.
and maybe I need to do that with my own book where it's like, I'm sorry that you had to wait this long. Here's the book, but, like, here's a novella where they just screw the whole time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think this is definitely it's angst in a different way, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's a different source of tension,
Mhm.
and I love it. I don't know, like, if that's not your style and your taste, that's fine, but god, I love it. I eat it up.
Yeah, I will say that this book is definitely not for everyone because it does play on a lot of extremes, right? It plays
Mhm.
on the extremeness of Misery's personality.
Yeah.
It plays on the extremeness of the whole slow burn.
It's a very extreme book, like, even with, like, the concept of vampires and werewolves, that's also
Yeah,
extreme too.
yeah, yeah, and it plays its tropes hard
Yeah.
and fast and well. But if you don't like those tropes, like this is not the book for you.
Yeah, you have to be aligned with the tropes to get into it,
Mhm. Yeah.
and you're right, this is like the Fast and Furious of tropes, of, like, of books. I'm just
Yeah.
imagining Allie Hazelwood, like, turning up with that little Tokyo Drift song. I would play it, but we cannot afford any copyright stuff, so
No,
that's
no,
us.
no, no.
Once Lo and Misery were kinda starting to feel each other and, again, like, it's impressive that it did feel like a slow burn because it is such a short book.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
to get that done is such a good job where once they were starting to kind of flirt and starting to,
Mhm.
you know,
Get physical.
get physical. I do love Misery's acceptance of it, their physical
Mm.
side. I think she was, like, on board with it pretty quickly. She's like, "Well, I'm horny."
And I like you.
Yeah, and it's like, "What am I gonna do with it? Nothing? Like, we're married. Okay." You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, it
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
definitely she was go from the second she was like, "Wait a minute. Is this sexual tension?"
It's true. She's like, "Let me just lean in.
Yeah,
It's
she
fine."
leaned in, and I do love it. Like, she never once fought her attraction for him. She was just like,
Yeah.
"Sexy werewolf husband. Okay. I'm supposed to just
Yeah.
do nothing with him?"
Yeah, right.
Fools, all of you.
Yeah, I mean, and that I think that is aligned with her character. I also liked that she just kinda leaned into the whole nodding thing, which
We'll save that. I'm saving that for last.
okay, which we will save for last. But I think was in line with everything else about her.
Yes.
Like, I'm married to this man. I think I'm attracted to him. Might as well have sex. Might as well not.
Yeah. She's like, "All right.
Might as well.
Might as well." You know what? We should all she's known as Might As Well Misery, and may we all have that same perspective. Might as well. What would Misery
Might
do?
as well.
Might as well. Yeah, why not? I mean,
Yeah.
truly, I think I'd be a happier person if I just
Honestly, yeah.
might as well.
Yeah.
So
Because what's the worst that could happen? It
so
doesn't happen.
right? Okay. So here are some negatives that I think are fair to discuss. Third act breakup.
Yeah, I think that's just part of Allie Hazelwood's formula that she's comfortable with.
Mhm.
Was it necessary? How else was she gonna get kidnapped? That's my question. Okay, never mind. Was Misery's kidnapping necessary? Because if you think Misery's kidnapping was necessary, then does that inherently mean the breakup was necessary
Mhm.
from a plot perspective?
I would have liked a fight over a breakup, and
Mhm.
maybe no, I'm gonna categorize this as a breakup. I think that this was a clear "I'm not interested in you," and I think what makes it hard to consume, and I will agree with this, is that it didn't feel true to Lo to
Yeah.
suddenly back out of his emotions. Like,
Mhm.
they just had sex. They just did, they like, he finally got to have what he's been wanting with her, and she finally admits her feelings for him. And I think at that point, it felt like he was trying to get her to admit things, if I remember correctly, but it felt like, "Come on, like, be on my level." And then she
Yeah.
finally gets it, and then he backs out, and it was definitely for the sake of, like, romantically, that was their climax, right? Like, because the
Mhm.
plot had other stuff happening. So,
Right.
plot-wise, there were other things that they was working towards the climax, but their romantic story, that was the climax. I think that could have been done in an argument, and I think that would have made her kidnapping more fun if
Yeah.
she had marched off, if he had let her, if they had just gotten it, and it wouldn't have had to be a breakup. It could have been like, "I'm cooling off."
Yeah, I mean, she could have run away from the knot and gone outside to cool down and been like, "You know what? I'm gonna lean in," and that's when she gets
Something,
kidnapped.
right? Like, and there's where and then it hurts us all. Yeah, I think the 3rd act breakup, it's going to be inevitable for romance books for some, because there's only so many things you can do when it comes to romance books, like,
Yeah,
you're trying to build tension somewhere, and there has to be a
yeah,
peak one point, so, of course, you're gonna have to, and breakup is one of those options. I don't fault her for it. I think it's the way that it happened. I don't like the way that it went down with Lo. Didn't seem completely authentic to him.
yeah, that's fair. I think you're right that it didn't feel authentic to him. We had one of our listeners write, him gaslighting her and removing her agency for her benefit was an
Mm,
eye roll,
mhm.
basically. And I think it is, like you said, it didn't feel authentic.
Yeah.
Could it be him getting cold feet? Could it be him doubting the maintenance? Could it be her finding out about the mate stuff and then being like, I freaking out about it? I think there were a lot of other opportunities. And I think this is an example of Allie Hazelwood going with something that she thinks is familiar.
Yeah.
And it's easy to fall into that comfort zone
Mhm.
when everything else about the book is so new and
And
uncomfortable.
I really have faith in Allie. Like, I think she can do so well with whatever she puts her mind to. Not that this wasn't done
Mhm.
well. Like, dear Allie, if you're
Yeah.
listening to this is no by way in way, shape, or form like you failed this. No. I agree. This was a new book. This was new territory. I would have loved
Mhm.
the romantic climax to be new as well and different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not, but
But there's more
yeah.
opportunity for growth,
Yeah.
and maybe she learns from this and try something new in the
I
next
think
book.
she will. I really support her. Like, after, like,
Mhm.
reading this, I just, like, and I always liked her book, but, like, after reading this, I get so excited when I see authors just grow and just do
Mhm.
really well, and you're like, "Oh my god, I can't wait to see what you do down the line because it's
Yeah.
only gonna get better." And I wonder how much of it was her comfort level, how much of it was editor and publisher's comfort
Mm.
level.
Yeah.
She's trying to sell a romance book and she's stepping into paranormal romance. So, there's a lot of reasons why that could have been.
Mhm.
But that's also like the danger of having a first person point of view and you never really get a shift out of it. Like we don't
Yeah.
know what's in his head. We got the little snippets, and I think that it wasn't quite enough at that point to justify his actions there.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. And maybe that's the next branch of Allie Hazelwood's exploration
Mhm.
is dual POV.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's a lost opportunity in this book. Maybe she wasn't ready to make that move.
Mhm.
But I think that while this book was not necessarily perfect, I think she did take risks
Yeah.
where she could. And I think those risks paid off. And I hope she,
Continues to take risks.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Agreed. Agreed. I would like someone to just like package this episode neatly and send it to her because like I just want her to like be like, you have a team.
We'll be,
Well, yeah,
yeah, we'll be your
we're your
cheerleader.
cheerleaders. We support you, Allie. We believe in you.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
One of my favorite comments, and I'm going to say I believe in this thoroughly.
Mm-hmm.
Misery will always be asleep in the day and he will not. The longevity of this relationship is questionable. I felt that
Yeah.
as who was with
Yeah,
someone
yeah.
who we did not have the same
You
schedules
guys did not.
in it.
Yeah. And he wasn't a vampire.
No, it would have helped. It's just really hard to have the same schedules, and I did think about that while I was reading this. I did think, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, but when are you guys, someone's gonna have to sacrifice a little.
Yeah.
Especially,
Yeah.
I mean, she does mention it towards the end when they're trying to figure out their sex schedule.
Yeah, I think maybe it makes sense for two independent people who are not used to relying on other people. I don't know that it's realistic.
It's funny. It's just a funny note.
But we do suspend our disbelief
Oh, yeah.
for a lot of things when it comes to paranormal.
Absolutely.
One of our, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, but I think it's worth bringing back. One of our listeners said, I hate a breakup / miscommunication immediately after intimacy. It infuriates me. And I really feel that because I feel like I have PTSD from Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. And I feel like this is kind of reminiscent of it in that way. And that's relevant to my brain because I just finished Fourth Wing
Yeah.
again for book club. It is so common in romance, in writing. And I think it's because if it's too happy, too often, too long, what's the point of the book?
Mhm.
And I feel like authors are regularly trying to balance the seesaw of, okay, it's really, really great, but let's add more
Yeah.
tension. We had great sex, but tension. And I understand why they do it, but it would be really, really nice if that's not the cause of tension.
Agreed. I'm coming from this, revealing a little bit of my just life personally here. I'm coming from this as someone who did have a breakup immediately after intimacy,
Mm,
and it didn't go well, and it wasn't fun. And actually, I could argue it happened twice. And
mm,
it was actually it felt very dehumanizing. It felt like he knew what was going to happen after, and yet you chose to sleep with me anyway. And
yeah.
it was not a fun feeling, and it's fine if you're gonna do it. They do not explore the ramifications of it, because it was, like, very hard for me for a while just to not be like, "I'm never gonna forgive you for this," and not I mean, and I don't.
Hmm.
Didn't talk to them ever since after that. But it did take a while for me to, like, get past just the hurt of it all, and it
Hmm.
is such a romanticized way of going about things, of, like, the immediate rejection after intimacy, where it's like, how are these women not screaming and raging of being like, "Wait, you had sex with me knowing that you weren't going to be with me after?" You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just so it's something that when I read, it really irritates me, because the female characters do not have, I feel like, appropriate response to
Yeah.
that, and then forgive way too quickly, because that's a
Yeah.
betrayal of trust.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how do you not feel
Oh,
used?
yeah. No, you do. Absolutely.
And I agree. I don't think that the consequences of that and the emotional fallout for the
Mhm.
female character is explored enough.
Yeah.
And I think it's just I don't want to call it lazy because I know that it's grounded in
Yeah,
reality.
yeah.
But I would like to see us try something different.
Yeah. Also, if you want me to believe that this is a good guy wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter, especially, like, think of Zayden, like, he's a morally gray character. Okay, but at his heart, he's good. You know what I mean? Like, don't pull
Yeah.
this morally
Yeah.
gray shit. Like, at his
Yeah.
heart, he's a good guy who's trying to help other students and stuff, right? And the same thing with Lo. At the end of the day, he was always a good guy. Like, there was never a moment of doubting, is Lo good or not?
Yeah.
And if you want me to believe in this male character, then
Mhm.
he will value her
Yeah.
and what she is feeling comfortable enough with to have sex with him, and he will value that time,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's just not what we're seeing.
So this makes me think of
Mhm.
the one bed at the end scene in Mist and Fury. And the reason why that worked
Mhm.
is because the miscommunication was on the woman's
Yep.
part before intimacy was
Yep.
initiated,
Yep, yep.
right? And we see Rhysand say basically like, I'll take whatever I can get
Yeah.
because he's a good man who wants this
Yeah,
woman.
and he was never rejecting her. That's the other thing, is, like,
Right.
Pharaoh was the one
Right.
who was rejecting him. Like, if you
Yeah.
want me to not and like you said, they communicated that before things happened.
Mhm.
She said, "I
Mhm.
just want a little bit of fun."
Yep.
So things
Yep.
were communicated at the top.
Yeah.
"Hey, this is casual. I don't want anything more." Misery is a virgin, and here we are, 3rd book in a
Mhm.
row with this freaking sexy virgin trope. But again, I will forgive this one a little bit more than I have for the other 2, because it does feel like Misery has lived a little bit more.
Yeah.
But we are once again getting a sexy virgin who
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
immediately gets screwed over by a man.
Yeah.
Wha Not only are you
Yeah.
using a woman's body at this point for your own pleasure, you are manipulating her first experience
Yeah.
to get what you want, and then not respect her.
Yeah. So I think I'm saying if we're going to have miscommunication, at least put the woman in a position of power
Mhm.
and let her be the one intentionally miscommunicating.
Agreed. Or if you're going to do it, have him be clear at the top. Have someone be
Yeah.
clear of what it is, like saying, hey, this is
Yeah.
just going to be a casual thing. Have the woman have a choice, because both with this book and with Poppy, at least Persephone, Haiti never left her. But like at least with Poppy and Poppy and Misery, these are two women who did not consent to their partner leaving immediately after.
Right.
They did not
Right.
consent to this. They consented to being with the man that they have spent days, months, whatever long it is, trusting and feeling like, yes, I can trust you with this. And
Yep.
then for them to immediately pull the wool over their heads. And that's what makes it hard, where it's like, why I don't jive with it as much is because I don't think Lo would do that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Let's get into the final most important part. And this is not to say that this isn't important. I would not say that it's the focus of this book.
Okay.
I think you're not having it with me right now.
I'm not.
If there's anything that I've learned from this comments and answer section, Amy, with when we put out like, hey, what do people like? There are two types of people in the world. People who don't like nodding in their books, and then us.
Yeah. This is, so I was introduced to nodding very young. Too young, mind you. However, I thought this was an excellent introduction to nodding. This is the dipping of the toe in the pool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't like it, avoid it.
Yeah.
Good for you. But if you liked it,
If you read,
there's a whole new world out there for you.
if you read this and thought, huh,
I could get on board.
huh, that's interesting. I don't hate it. Someone did say, I didn't understand it, but I don't hate it. And I'm like, welcome. So what this is called is Omegaverse.
So this is Omegaverse Light.
This is intro
right?
to Omegaverse.
Right. This is just nodding, which is a physiological reality for animals.
Okay, this is when you say it like this, it does make it sound bad. But hear us out, listener. I was trying to find justification and I lost it. It's continue. You continue.
So on a physical level, it's intriguing because of the potential pleasure that comes from it.
Essentially,
there's an intimacy factor in it.
So essentially, we have to just talk about what it is. It's a swollen gland at the base of the man's penis. This is on camera, so I'm also like getting so red. It's a swollen gland it's a gland, I guess, that swells, and then you do see it with animals and dogs and stuff. And it's meant to keep the cum inside the female partner so that none of it comes out, so that there's a better chance of impregnation. And
right. And part of it is it locks the two together, right? The two genitalia get locked together like puzzle pieces, and you're stuck there.
You cannot get out off of
until
it.
the knot goes down.
And depending on the story. So the thing that makes this Omegaverse light is that they're werewolves and there's justification.
Well,
some Omegaverse, there is they're just humans that have it.
Right. It's also Omegaverse light because we're only dealing with alphas. Mm-hmm. We're not dealing with betas and omegas, which is a whole other thing. We're not dealing with heat.
Yeah.
We're not dealing with rutting. Those are deep into the Omegaverse.
You're listing off like the poor listener that has never understood Omegaverse. They're like, rutting? What
is this? Well, and that's why I would almost not classify this
absolutely
as Omegaverse.
No, this is this is not Omegaverse, but you were next to the Omegaverse pond and you're looking at it and you say, that kind of looks like a nice pond.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can get into it.
And I feel like I need to cool down.
Yeah. Because I promise you, it's going to heat you up. But it's
anyway. So nodding, if it's not for you, no harm, no foul. If you enjoyed it,
get ready because your world is about to open up.
it is interesting for this to be in mainstream because this is a
Oh,
huge,
yeah.
huge genre
Fan
in fan
fiction. Yeah.
fiction, in Japanese manga.
Mm.
So, and that's
It's
where,
very subculture.
yeah, it is. And so it was shocking to me when I was like, wait, 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 this was a traditionally
I
published
know.
book.
Again, I'm blown away that Allie convinced her editors. Like, I really think someone was just really drunk or something, or just didn't get the memo. I I would like to I would like to give credit where credit is due and say that Amy was the one who introduced me to Omegaverse. You look so proud of yourself, as you should
I
be.
am very proud
You
of
should be.
myself.
And I think the first time I read one, I was like, "What just happened? What's just going on?" And it
Mm,
was granted, I jumped in. Like, I did not go light. I was like, I'm going full force, and it
mhm,
was like
mhm.
like, I mean, once you get into the whole, like, heat aspect of it, it's like a stranger pins another stranger, and there's, like, a lot of other stuff. It's all questionable.
It is, and there's huge debate about is, consent, lack of consent in Omegaverse
Yeah.
fiction, and some authors handle it really well, some do
Mhm,
not,
mhm.
and which is why I think Allie Hazelwood avoided that shit as
Yes.
much as she could.
She had that answered right off the bat. And I also
Mhm,
think another big thing when it comes to, a megaverse and nodding and all that is the pregnancy aspect of it, right?
mhm,
Because it's just another variation of pregnancy kink, which oh no,
yeah,
breeding kink, because we
breeding.
as we know with past seasons, everyone likes a breeding kink, no one likes a pregnancy trope. And
Yep, yeah. And by everyone, they mean Jack.
no, our listeners, I pulled this. I did a poll and our listeners agreed. Breeding kinks allowed. So I think this also solves the other issue when it comes to I love it because this really does show like Allie's fan fiction roots. But I
Mhm,
think it also does a lot to avoid the breeding question of it. Because that's what
yeah,
Omegaverse and the knot and all that stuff is about, right? Is like about
right.
keeping it all in. Not that Misery and Low can't have kids, it would just be so close to impossible and so rare that we
Mhm,
don't have to
mhm.
worry about the, like, "Wait, but the cum is still inside her," you know what I mean? Like, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
still
yeah, yeah.
there, and also, like, she did handle it, she was very, very PG with the knot, like, and, like, the fact that, like, it only comes out with your mate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, talk about brilliant, honestly.
Yeah.
And again, because we're dealing with different genetics, different species, there's
Mhm.
no such thing as heat, there's no such thing as omega. Like,
Yeah.
she took away a lot of the questionable aspects of that
Mhm.
genre and made it palatable
Yeah.
for people who've not yet been introduced to
She left us the things that matter, and that's not.
it. Except the way that you said it sounded like snot.
It's not. I Yeah, I think one of my like, when I closed the book and I looked around and no one was near me, and I wish I could have, I wish we were allowed to text each other for these things and not save it for,
Mhm.
recording, but I looked around and I was like, "My biggest complaint? Not enough nodding. You're telling
Yeah,
me
yeah.
you're saving that till the very end? How dare you?"
Well, if she is introducing readers to nodding, I think it's appropriate for it to be at the end because she wants them to at least finish the story
Mhm.
before she gets to that point.
I would love the next book because I think she teases it up for the next book, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
I
Yep.
want
Yep.
I want it from the start. I want it middle, beginning, middle, end. What was it? Someone, let me pull up the comments. Someone who was like, just it's not their thing, and they read like they did a quote, and it was something that they didn't like. So this was under the negatives, and they couldn't handle it. But when he said "pop a knot," like "pop my knot," or like something about my knot, and they're
Mm-hmm,
like, "I didn't
hmm.
like it." I was like, "Oh yeah, no. If you're not ready, then that's fine."
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's get into some other aspects of the romance rather than nodding. I want to give credit where credit is due, and that is the airplane scene.
Mm. That was a hot
It was
scene.
such a
It was unexpected.
it was unexpected.
I was just like, whoa,
And
that was fun.
and all he did was like smell her and rub up it. No, he like licked her, he kissed her neck and stuff. Yeah, it was great. It was really nice. And then it goes into the library scene. I felt like the progression of their romantic side was good. Like it starts
Yeah.
off with just like tense, and then it's like him, making out with
Well,
her
he has
neck.
right, he's scenting
Yeah.
her, right? He's rubbing his pheromones on her so that she smells like him to prevent a bad situation. I loved the necessity of it. I loved the necessity of them feeding.
Yeah.
Right, and then he's like, "Oh, wow, I really enjoyed that." The necessity and the unexpected enjoyment were hot.
Oh yeah.
And I think done very well, and not all authors can pull that off
Yeah.
as successfully.
If the whole scenting thing was like making her smell like his pheromones was so important, I think the first thing I would have done getting off that airplane was take a very intense bath. So that it would
So that he had to do it
Yes.
again? Nice.
I would be like, it's so weird. I had to take a shower. Help.
Help,
Here.
please.
Show me. Here's my neck. Is that what you need? Yeah, no, I think you did it. You said it well. I think sometimes when it comes to romantic scenes with smutty books and stuff, and the whole genre of it is like, are the sex scenes necessary? And not all sex scenes have to be necessary. I think I have read plenty of books that they're there for the fun, and I am okay with it. Allie Hazelwood makes them necessary, especially for this book, and I just enjoy it that much more.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like they were full-blown smutty scenes, right? They were suggestive, they were starting to get hot.
Yeah.
You could feel the attraction, and then they get cut short.
Yeah.
And that's part of the slow burn appeal. That's part of the tension appeal. And that's why, to me, the end is satisfying, because she did all that work
Yeah.
for me to be like, oh my God, please just give it to me.
Please, somebody. Now, my other thing, I'll say it's my gripe, and this is where I think she had a sentence to excuse it, so I'll allow it. But my issue is always when things just fit and work the first time women have sex. Now, there's Allie throws in the like, we're mates, like the things just fit, so it's perfect and everything is fine. To me, that falls under sexy virgin trope of like her first time. You're telling me her first time is bento, is like doggy style, which makes sense because he's a wolf. But you're telling me that she is bent over and that's her first time is going to be from that angle. And like, even if it's supposed to work, I don't know. It's still like, those are always hard for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. The only saving grace I'm going to give to Hazelwood is that she is not the author I expect more work from in this regard. Does that make sense? Just because of the genre of her book. Now, if she took on that challenge, it would be a pleasant surprise. But I don't expect it from her, right? I don't expect it from the romantic comedy genre.
I would expect it more from the romantasy people.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, I would put that onus on if you have a fantasy, like, larger plot element going on. Yeah, I agree with that.
This is such a microcosm of a moment in time for these characters. Whereas I look at the romantasy genre and you think about the long-term growth of the characters along a long series of plot lines.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just didn't expect it. I would love to see someone do it. Do I think Allie Hazelwood could do it and make it fun and worthwhile? I do.
Yeah.
I don't expect it from her because of what I know she's written before.
If there's anyone who I think could do it well, because like, what I'm looking for is a first time sex scene that makes sense, and I just don't see that in romance books and romantasy books. Like, it's just always a pressure and then pleasure and stuff, and it's always internal penetration that makes a woman come the first time also. Like, there's just a lot of aspects. If there's anyone that I feel like could experiment with the idea and make it fun, it would be Allie.
Yeah. I
think that she has the skill, the humor, and the potential to really deliver on a scene like that.
I agree.
Someone send this episode to Allie. I have requests.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. Next week, we will be discussing Feybound by Sarah El Arifi.
We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. If you would like to submit your take on any of these books we plan to discuss later this summer, please be sure to follow us on Instagram, where we ask for listener submissions.
If you are enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon, Ko-Fi, or Venmo. You can also follow us on TikTok or Instagram at the handle BookTalk4BookTalk.
Bye.
Bye.
I
wasn't even looking at
I wasn't
you.
either. I just felt like we would know it. Okay.
On my end, it was insane.
Oh, really? On my end, it wasn't, but I'm excited if it is.
Oh.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.